There's no rules!
Do the lower floor!
There's one rule!
Welcome back to the No Mulligans podcast, where we're here in the studio at Franklin Bridge, and we're here with the doors open. So the sun is setting, and we're looking out here over the driving range, and geez, just what a cool piece of property. Glad we get to do this every week.
And the birds are chirping and the bugs are making noise, and it's like I'm back in Colorado.
Right? Which kind of leans into what we're talking about today. But before we do, wherever you're listening, thanks so much for listening. If you're listening on Apple, please give us 5 stars and leave a review. It really helps. And if you're on Spotify, give us a follow. And I think there might also be a like button on Spotify. So if there is, please give us that as well. And then on YouTube, sadly, we're not doing YouTube on this episode, but we will get back to it on our next episode. But if you guys are watching us on YouTube, sorry, Steven, for not having this one on YouTube, man. Sorry about that.
Him and Scott Spector.
Him and Scott Spector. But yeah, if you go ahead and search No Mulligans on YouTube, you'll find us right there. No Mulligans Podcast. There you go.
Yep.
So on this episode, we're going to be talking about, I feel like this is something that's really, really relevant in today's day and age, but we're also going to be parlaying it on top of your trip that you recently took to Colorado, and then I'll be speaking on it too, just in me and my daily life, and also, of course, relating it to golf. So
I think this has massive dividends.
Huge.
Across all disciplines.
Huge. I completely agree, which is why I think it's so good that we can talk about it, and we will be relaying it to golf a little bit, but I think that if you can do this in a general sense, your golf game will improve regardless of if we talk about how you can display it on the course or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and we're not going to give you the specific thing yet, but, so just went on a big trip with Elijah and Erica. We've had this planned for, I've had it planned for a year with Elijah, but the specific layout of the trip has been in place for about 6 months. I put it in place, and so really excited. Nice team building week. We decided to go to Colorado and hike some 14,000-foot mountains.
Well, it's cool too because Franklin Bridge Performance Institute is only 3 of you guys right now, plus some of our
Scott
awesome
and
people.
Dustin.
Yes, plus Scott and Dustin in the tour shop and everything. But like, it's cool that you're literally, the team is so small that you guys are going and doing this Colorado trip. And it's the entire organization, that's going to do it. So
and
that's pretty cool.
It's kind of weird to shut off all of our teaching and all of our communication, and because there's almost no cell service.
Right.
My average screen time per day was 37 minutes.
That's awesome. And how many of those minutes were checking GPS and stuff? Probably the majority.
It was GPS checks and waypoint marks
and texting,
and calling
family.
Yeah, if there was a weather thing, but all that went through the GPS.
Right.
So it was FaceTiming family at the top, the only time you had cell service for 2 weeks. So it was great. But as a part of that, you don't realize how addicted we are to our phones, and I think that's the right term. I think it's that strong, and not just to our phones, but addicted to noise in general.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because this is not a podcast about being addicted to your phone. It's really just in the modern day that we live in, there's just so much noise around us. We were talking about this right before we came on air, but there's music in the grocery store. You hop in the car, you listen to music or a podcast. You
irony.
Right, exactly. Us, exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny. You get to work, you're staring at a screen probably, more than likely, and so
you might have music on in work or in your headphones.
Right. You come home, maybe you go to the gym, you work out, you got music in your ears.
And if it's not there, it's in the gym.
If it's not there, it's in the gym. If you go home, you're probably possibly watching a little Netflix before you go to bed, or
while you're making food. People do it all the time, right?
100%.
And
100%.
while you're doing dishes and while you're folding laundry, it's just noise. Always.
Constant stimulation.
Right.
And there's something that I'll kick this off. I feel like I found myself recently over the past couple weeks noticing myself when I'm let's say I'm cooking dinner and I want to put the highlights of the Red Sox game on in the background, or it's and sometimes I'll catch myself and I'm oh, I want to fire up YouTube right here. And I say, well, Jack, what, hold on, stop. Why? And so today when I was coming out here to the course, I was looking for a podcast to put on, looking for music, and I was you know what? No. And I just did the entire drive in silence. And it was just so refreshing. It's
hard to do.
Oh, my God.
Now, here's the cool part. It's refreshing on the front end. So it's just like, let's say somebody's trying to not be an addict, and like addiction's real, right? Whether it's your phone, noise, alcohol, drugs, whatever, like you name the thing, we can be addicted to it. You can be addicted to exercise, like. But for me, it's thinking about this, going, all right, I'm going on this Colorado trip. The first couple of days are really exciting, right? Like, this is pretty straightforward. Like, oh, this is rejuvenating. This is wonderful. You get about 5 to 7 days into it, and all of a sudden, it doesn't feel like that anymore. It's that initial, like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm taking on this addiction. I'm not addicted to it. Then you start to feel the need for it.
100%.
And the withdrawal, I haven't felt anything like that in a hot minute, which adds to some of the anxiety of the trip on some of the difficult peaks that we were doing, right? It's like, I feel we haven't had one of those in a long time.
I know.
But
luckily there's a cap on
it starts to affect some of the nervousness. So like now I'm not medicating the nervous and anxious energy. So like, how am I going to hike this peak without that? I don't drink. I don't do tobacco, any sort of other drugs. Like, I don't have my phone to just like keep my brain occupied and to keep the noise going and to keep the thoughts still. And you're going, crap, I feel like I have ADHD.
Oh my God.
And I cannot occupy that. And so until you start hiking and get far enough into the hike where the endorphins start kicking, that quiet it down, that anxious energy is just sitting there all night. And you realize how stuck on that phone
100%.
you're used to, and how much of that actually is an addiction. It's not just the phone, right? It's the noise. There's no noise. It's you and the two people that you're camping with.
Right.
That's it.
And I guess if I can, add a situation to me, you saying you were feeling it when the endorphins were kicking in on the mountain. Mm-hmm. One thing that I do listen to music when I'm in the gym, but one thing that I always try and do when I'm in the gym, and what do you see when you go to the gym? You see people who are in between sets and they're just on their phone.
Right.
The entire time. They're on their
right.
phone. They're on their phone. They're on the phone.
I've been there. Sign me up.
Yeah, 100%. And I have too. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not a hypocrite for this. But one thing that I try and do almost always is when I'm in between my sets, just sit there. And sometimes when you just sit there and you're feeling the endorphins pumping through your body, to me, that's like my Zen time. Just because I'm like, it's like I'm releasing all of this stress that I built up throughout the entire day, and I'm not leaning on my crutch, aka my phone, when I'm in between those sets.
You're leaning on something that requires you to do something that's healthy for your body to feed the endorphin needs to quiet the mind.
And sometimes I'm like, why can't I just like go be a zookeeper and I don't have to like work on my phone?
Dude.
Like.
It is incredibly difficult. And so, like, we got to the end of the trip. The trip was great.
Yeah.
Eric and I did 7 peaks.
Which, by the way, earlier you were telling me how you...
No, don't even finish that.
Well, I'm not going to finish it, but, like, you had an ambitious goal in mind.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, man, I only did 7 peaks instead of X. And I'm like, Scott, shut up. Like, you did 7 peaks.
I know.
Like, that's crazy.
It's like we did close to 30,000 feet in elevation gain. And we did over 80 miles on the ground.
I've done that, but I've done it on ski lifts.
So, if you actually translate, elevation, the way they translate elevations, for every 1,000 feet, it's a mile. So whether it's 1,000 up or 1,000 down, it translates a mile. So if you go, say we've done 25,000 feet of elevation gain, that's also 25,000 feet of elevation loss. So that's 50,000 total elevation. That's 50 additional miles on top of the 80 that we did. So it translates to like 130 miles.
Now, you say that's like the 1,000 feet is equated to the mile. Is that like because obviously that's not how a mile is measured in a car, right? But like explain a little bit between the 1,000
It's the energy expenditure that's required.
Okay.
Like when you're bracing yourself coming down. Now, you don't feel the oxygen coming down like,
sure.
Oh, you feel better coming down like, I can breathe easier.
Right.
But your legs are still grinding to brace every single step. It's like the down part. It's like a constant down part of a lunge. It's like you're never coming out of the lunge. You're only going down, 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 down for several thousand feet.
It's like when you push your drive off of 8 here at Franklin Bridge and you have to walk down the hill.
Right. And then just do that for several hours.
Right, yeah.
Right. So, but when you look at it, so obviously the three of us burn calories at a different rate, but basically the average between the three of us was 5,000 calories a day. That's how much we burned.
Which that means that you can eat 5,000 calories and just get back to even.
And you
crazy.
can't eat that much because you're
No.
hiking and exerting energy the whole time.
Right.
And at night you still can't eat that much because it takes a while for you to come off of that.
Right.
You can't consume 2,500 calories in one sitting.
Did you guys weigh yourself after you came back, or did you weigh yourself?
Yeah, it seems like most of us were down about 5 pounds.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think about that, 3,500 calories is a pound. So times 5, it's a 15,000 plus, almost 18,000 calorie deficit.
Yeah.
Over the course of those days.
You guys probably weren't putting in your maintenance calories just in general.
You're trying to, but you can't do much.
Right.
So, but anywho, with all that being said, we come back. I have my first day off. I'm like, you know what? Here's what I'm bringing back from Colorado, and that is my 37 minutes of screen time on my phone. And so right now I'm averaging, since I've returned, I think it's 32 minutes, 33 minutes on my phone every day. I don't have my calendar on my phone. I don't have YouTube on my phone. I don't have Instagram or Twitter on my phone. I have Spotify on there just to check on the podcast. It's for texting and phone calls. That's all it's for right now.
I'm trying to check mine because I'm the exact opposite, because with real estate, obviously I need to be on my phone.
So the question is,
pretty
how
much
much
all day,
can you
every day.
not be on your phone and do it on a computer?
Now
laptop?
you're exactly right, and here's the
you have more control over that one than you do over the one.
correct.
On your phone.
And here's the difference with that is, for me, because I have to get on
Tate's
my phone.
checking his too.
He's checking his phone. For me, since I have to be on my phone, I don't even have it turned on right now. Oh, poor me.
Boo.
But since I'm on my phone so much and I have to open it up for work, what does it do? It just reinforces the action of opening your phone, right? And so what do I do when I don't know what to do? I open my phone. That in itself is just really hard, because now you're competing with the habitual act.
Right.
But sometimes my brain is like, well, what am I even trying to do?
Right. So you remember you sent me this thing about anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And getting rid of anxiety is not trying to not be anxious. It's learning how to be present. So looking at Tate's phone, this is where I was before the Colorado trip.
Yeah.
Tate's phone is over 6 hours average for the last 3 weeks. Mine?
Yeah, 29 minutes.
29 minutes.
41 minutes
41.
in that week, yeah.
So, I'm bringing that back, and I tell you what, it is a game changer. I'm more present with my family. I'm more present at my job. When I go to work, it's like, all right, I've got a couple of text messages. I've got a very tight window to reply to them. I'm more concise. I'm more direct. I'm if it's something doesn't need to be taken care of in a text message, hey, email that to me. I'll work on it.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. I get all of my work done at work here on the computer. I've gotten a ton of things done, but here's the other issue. I've had my Sunday, my Monday off this week, and Sunday, Monday off. Now that both kids are in school, there was so much silence in my day on Monday. I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
That was really hard.
You know what's interesting too is, so Hannah, my girlfriend, she turned 25 a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that, I'm almost a year older. It's 9-10 months older than her. And I mean, not that I've exponentially learned life in this time, but I left her a little video. It was a little GIF being here's what I've learned in my 25th year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But the one thing that I told her is I don't believe that life is short. I believe that life is long. Now, the problem is people don't know how, and this is me included. I'm not trying to be a prophet in all of this, but the problem is that people, they just busy themselves, whether that's with work, whether that's with anything else.
And it's a form of medicating,
exactly.
dealing with all of the things that are in her head.
Yes, and that's exactly why you were telling me, earlier how your piece that you were telling me just about how sometimes you use work as a coping mechanism for other things, right?
I realized making a trip as hard as I could possibly make it is a part of me. I'm not trying to prove anything.
Right. But we all do it.
I'm not going to tell anybody but the people that matter, and they're not going to care whether I did 1 peak or 27. Like,
but to your point,
doesn't matter.
It's the intentionality, like you have with your phone, to
Right.
actually slow down and experience life. And 2, it's the discipline in order to plan in the future and not just let life happen to you, which is what I
Right.
feel like a lot of people do with media these days. Is every single time they look at their phone, everything's taking their attention, not away from what they want to accomplish, but now it's being consumed by whoever's creating that media.
Right. So football season's just kind of started, right?
Yeah.
So, like, when you go to these parties, so you have a tailgate or you're at somebody's house, whatever, you go there, there's screens to watch, and people are on their phones on the screens in front of each other, kind of sort of talking to each other, not kind of really talking to each other at all. Like, there's so much noise. Like, it's even something that's meant to be fun, entertaining. You're actually not even interacting with the people you're around. You're around them, but you're not actually engaged with them. So, like, that piece is the piece that's, like, we're missing. And to take that away, like, Sunday and Monday, 2 of the slowest days in my life that I can remember.
But that and
you're learning how
proves
to be
my point.
bored.
That proves my point.
Right.
With life is not short, life is long, right?
But
Because we don't know how to
stay
use
busy.
it. Exactly.
And then I realized, I was like, what do I like to do? I don't know. Like, I legitimately did not know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
So I'm just, like, following my thoughts. I knew for the first couple of days, especially when you study meditation and prayer and things like that, like, when you first do it, it's just kind of like stream of consciousness. Like, you just kind of just go wherever your thoughts go and just kind of let them go. Like, it's okay. They'll come and they'll go. Some will be good. Some will be bad. Some will be whatever. And I started to realize, all right, what do I actually like? Like, what are the moments that stand out from the trip? Like, we had a night where we did a sunset hike to the top of Mount Princeton, and coming down in the dark. So we don't get down till after midnight. And we come down, we stop in the saddle at about 13:09, and we lay back and look up at the stars. There's no cities nearby.
No light pollution at all.
No light pollution whatsoever. And it takes about 10 minutes because we have the light pollution from our headlamps. So it takes about 10 minutes for your eyes to adjust to pure darkness. You can see the Milky Way. You see multiple shooting stars, like things you don't see with all the light pollution. So we're polluted by light. We're polluted by noise. We're polluted by all sorts of stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I remember when I was a kid, like, I loved, like, studying nature and outer space. So it took me a while to think through it. So Monday, guess what I went to the library and got? I got a book on, like, all the places you could travel in the world and that are, like, outdoor nature stuff, not, like, a coliseum. But
You know what one of my favorite memories of us is as well is when we played that barefoot round.
yeah,
that
we
one
need
night.
to do that again.
We need
Like,
to do that again.
That's the kind of stuff I enjoy because
But
now,
for the people listening who didn't get to listen to that podcast, Scott and I, we played the 2 rules.
played with Erica,
We
too,
played
I
with
think.
Erica for a little bit, and the 2 rules were no talking.
Oh, I forgot about that
Yeah,
rule. That's
no-
hard for me.
Yeah, I know. But no talking. We played barefoot, and when it got dark, we keep on playing.
Yeah.
There's no, and we walked.
Right. Yep,
we
we
definitely
did.
walked, and that was just. But there's something about just quieting down, playing golf, not talking, and you just be. My mind is just racing right now, just because.
No, we're both like humming.
I know we're humming right now, but you just start to learn a little bit more about yourself when you just give yourself that intentional time
Correct.
to slow down and just be with yourself. Not even with your
Right.
spouse, your partner, whoever it is. Just be by yourself. And
Right.
one of my my work
And
does
that
this thing.
includes like no phones,
Correct.
no
100%,
noise. People are like,
100%.
"Oh, I'm by myself." I was
No,
like,
no,
no.
no.
You're engaged with the TV show, with the social,
Exactly.
with the Snapchat, with the whatever.
And if you're wearing a smartwatch, take it off. Like you got
'Cause
you're getting the pings on your wrist, right?
Right.
You got to get it off.
Gotta get it
but
out
what
of
I was
there.
going to say about that is my work team does this thing called Working Geniuses. There's basically 6 working geniuses. Everybody has 2
That's right. You were telling me about this.
Exactly. Everybody has two that are like their strengths, 2 that are their weaknesses, and 2 that are their competencies. And this test is set up to identify those. One of mine is wonder. And guess what? When I'm feeling like the crappiest about myself, guess what I'm not doing? I'm not sitting there and just wondering, like, what if this, what if that? Because my brain is constantly just polluted with podcasts, music, work, screens, all this kind of stuff. And so one thing that one of my mentors told me, he's like, man, you just have to slow down and literally time block it in your schedule.
Correct.
Intentional time to just wonder and have white space.
Correct.
And
that's hard to do,
it's
though.
so hard to do.
Because we're so inundated with noise.
And I've
that
never
it
thought of
feels
myself
weird.
as a like an addictive person, right? And I don't think that I don't know if I am.
We
all yeah,
all
okay,
are.
that's fair.
Like
that's fair.
that's like people are like, I don't have an addiction. Yes, you do.
Yes.
Let's dig a little bit. I can find one.
You know, you're 100%
right.
right. But I mean, to that end, you know, all of us, I feel like at this point, are addicted to the noise and keeping our brain preoccupied.
We are, and if there's one thing like that fixes there's not one thing that fixes the whole society, right? But maybe there is. Like at least you can maybe not turn the clock back, but you can maybe redirect the ship a little bit. And it's to stop, turn it off. Stop listening to the podcast. Like I don't just stop. You can pick it up whenever you want. Just remember it'll remember where you left off. Like you don't have to remember. Just shut it off. Turn the phones off. Leave them there. Like when you go play golf, put your phone in your bag and turn it off. Well, what if somebody needs me? Well, for the vast majority of the world, if somebody needed you, they sent somebody. If it was that urgent, they'd call the golf shop, send somebody out to get you if there's an emergency. Nothing is that urgent unless it's a true emergency.
And so to end this podcast here, I want to kind of relay this to golf because we've talked about, you know, we've talked about the source. We've talked about what we want to talk about. Now let's talk about how we can relay it to golf. There's two rules that I've had for myself. Well, I guess one real good rule that I've promised myself that I do whenever I play golf. And when I started making this rule, I started shooting in the 70s consistently. And I don't know if it's if it's a coincidence or not. I don't know if I've told you. I think I might have told you, but it might have been
just kind of in passing, and it just kind of.
So when I'm golfing, the promise that I make to myself is that I will move at 0.8 speed. 0.8 speed all the time.
Which means
like if I feel like I'm rushing, or if I'm, one of the problems in my golf swing is my transition, right? It's
really
too much of a quick transition, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times my head is just so wired to think so quickly, work, school.
You're moving at 5 times speed.
All of this, exactly. And so I tell myself, move down at 0.8 speed. If you think you're walking at 1x speed, 0.8. Just bring it back just a touch. And for me, in my head, I was playing with this guy, and I think a lot of people are like this, and so I'm not talking bad about him, but he was just a nervous Nelly the entire round, and he was just like, you could tell that he was just like the entire freaking round. And so he hit a shot, and he was just like cursing himself out, like while he was like, and he was probably 10 yards behind me. And so he hit like 3 other golf shots afterwards. Like he plunked one in the creek on 7, and then he whips out 2 golf balls from his pocket, puts them down, hits him. And I'm like, okay, dude, it's my turn to hit. And then on his last round, his last shot, he hits it on the green, and then he's like, why didn't you do that the first time? And then walks away. And I'm like in my pre-shot routine about to walk up to my ball, and I say, Jack, deep breath, 0.8 speed, reset, and now I feel good about the headspace.
Yeah.
But I think the point to this 0.8 speed thing is that in life, we are moving so fast. There's always somebody that needs us. There's always a task to get done. And golf is the one sport where you can slow down.
You have to.
You have to. Slow down,
right.
Enjoy the round, and compose yourself to make good shots.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, like, that is one thing that golf has taught me, and I think that golf teaches everybody at one point or another, is to really master your focus and your mind.
Well, and that's I have an article coming out this coming week, which will come out right before this podcast. Yeah, and it's all about practice. Like, does the shoe fit? Does your practice fit what you're trying to do? And for the vast majority of people, the answer to that's no. And I would say I go as far as say probably over 90%. But I asked 3 questions. I'm only going to present the first one. The first one of that is to evaluate your practice is, am I ready to practice? And the answer to that for most people is a firm no, you're not ready. And I'm not talking about you have your shoes. Like, people get here, they get out of the car, they grab their clubs, they go get the balls, go straight to the driving range. Well, you just came from work, or you just came from settling down a wild kid, or you're still listening to your podcast, or you might even had your phone on, right? Like, you answered 3 Snapchats before you went to the right, you're still in this noisy space.
Yeah.
Like, there's no chance you can focus. All the sports psych stuff, which there's good stuff in it, it's all at the end of the day, it's all about, can you focus? Mm-hmm. You cannot focus if all you're doing is constantly occupying your brain. I couldn't do it. You can't do it. You have to learn. You have guys on the tour starting a lot of meditation type stuff. You have people that are in control of their phone space. Like if their team's big enough, they have that under control, because you cannot focus if you cannot be quiet.
Yep.
And cannot be still.
Yep.
And
Yep.
literally shut it all off other than the natural noise.
And the last thing I'll say on my end for this is when you start
Thanks.
moving, if you're taking my advice to heart and you start moving at that 0.8 speed, you'll realize how empowering that is. You feel like, wow, I actually have control. What is the one thing that a lot of golfers come to you and say, like, I just can't figure it out? They don't feel like they have control.
Right.
At
Well, they
all.
show up here out of control.
Exactly.
Right.
And so when you start slowing down, and this is also assuming that you've practiced enough and you're doing what you got to do. When you start hitting good golf shots and you're moving at 0.8 speed and you're breathing well and in a normal rhythm and controlling your nerves, and you're just, life is good. Life is good. I don't care that I just hit that shot less than ideal, right? Because golf is a game of misses. You just got to let it come to you.
Yeah. And I'll pose a challenge to the group, since I've gone almost 3 weeks now with no phone.
Yeah, good for
And
you.
other than the text and phone call.
Right.
So I'm keeping it under an hour. I'm under 45 minutes every day right now. But don't just do it with the phone. Don't turn on Netflix. Don't turn on the noise. Don't turn on the radio. Try to do that for 10 days straight. If you get to 10, try to go to 15. Because what's going to happen if that first 10 doesn't bother you, that next 5 is going to. And in that place is where you have to learn to control it. And so, like, I'm not putting any of it back in until I've got control of it. And I tell you what, the last couple of days has not been easy. It's been the hardest because it's everywhere. Everybody's on it. It's always around me. It's like, nope, I have to stay detached from that, and it's going to be way healthier for you. So 10 days.
Just regulating that dopamine.
Turn it all off.
Yeah.
Like, you may have to ask for help from family. Like, hey, I know you're playing. Can you just put the headphones in right now? Like, I don't.
And I'll make it easier for you guys too. And I think I posed this in the last podcast, was if you are a serial phone person,
Most of us are.
try deleting an app that is unnecessary throughout your day, or at least delete it during the work day. And give yourself time, between 5 and when you go to bed, or in the morning before you go to work, and just, have that be your time, then delete the app so it's away from you. And that way you're at least building a rhythm.
Well, I'll tell you this. Not only do I have them deleted, I cannot download an app without somebody else has the access code for me to download anything.
The two-factor code.
I have to physically hand them my phone for them to enter the code.
Interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
So it's just, I can't have access unless I steal it from somebody else, and that just,
Right.
Then people are going to be like, dude, what happened to you? I'm not going to give you my phone.
Yeah. Well, I guess
So-
to wrap this whole thing up is just that this isn't something that you're going to be a perfectionist at on the first day. This is something that's just, as long as you have the awareness that it's happening, you'll start to become better. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the No Mulligans podcast. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, leave a review on any of the platforms that you're hearing us on, either YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music. And if you guys aren't seeing the YouTube video and all you're doing is seeing the MP3 and then the cover art on YouTube, we really appreciate you guys being YouTube listeners and watchers. We'll have you back on actual video here next week. So from Scott, Jack, and Tate, inside the studio here at Franklin Bridge. See you on the next one. Peace.
There's one rule!